Welcome to Three Beers, One Cup. As always, your host Macho, and today with me I have. Who are you? Okay, he
Dave.
doesn't know his own name. Just kidding. Dave. All right, Dave. So what's going on, man? We got some crazy stuff with the presidential inauguration, right? We got like 25,000 people out there watching the president, right? Taking care of him, making sure he's good because he's a legitimate president, of course, right? Yeah.
Of, of course, I am personally glad that we have a professional president who sniffs kids because we haven't had one of those in a while. So I'm just glad we're back on track.
I mean, who doesn't like the smell of that nice baby shower, you know, soap stuff? Yeah, it's awesome. Jesus Christ.
I mean, I really think it's he enjoys smelling people. You
Nothing wrong
know,
with that. I'm sure no Secret Service agent had an issue with him back in the Obama era.
well, apparently from the reports, he used to swim nude in front of the female Secret Service agents. So I'm sure that they're going to be happy to be
Mm,
uh,
maybe he
back
has
on
something to be proud
his
of.
his task per se.
I don't know.
So
Maybe
I mean, it should be an interesting 4 years. He did say he's not going to run for re-election, right?
I mean, oh man, this is gonna sound bad. I don't think he's gonna make it there. He seems to be having some health issues, from what I understand. I feel like Kamala is what the establishment wants up in there. What do you think?
Well, I would agree with that. I think Kamala has been their choice from day one. Sadly, Tulsi went in there and just torpedoed her in about 5 minutes and absolutely destroyed her on the debate floor. And she went from third place to, I don't know, like eighth or something like that. So they decided to go with Joe Biden and they said, hey, it would be great if you pick the woman who came in like fifth in her own state. I think that'll be a good pickup.
Oh, and
So,
also the woman who said that she believed that Joe Biden was a rapist.
well, that's probably true, actually. So, I mean, that's not a false statement.
Hey,
I,
I
I
believe women. Okay,
personally
so there's
believe
that.
all women. That's just my motto in life, and I think if you don't, you're just a sexist. Be
I mean,
because
you know,
whatever they say goes, and it is what it is.
yeah. Unfortunately, while I think he's going to be in office, I think he'll make his 2 years. I think maybe like 6 months less or not, but there's a lot of damage that I think he can do by just basically, you know, signing off anything that gets put in front of him. I don't know if you saw that video when they put a document in front of him. He's like, I don't even know what I'm signing, and it's like, what?
I didn't see that video, but somehow that didn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous because the man's just signing things off, and it's just like, oh, I don't know what it is, and it's kind of sad to be honest, but
Have they given him crayons yet? Here,
he's just
here's
doing it with
a bunch of
Crayolas.
color in it. It'll be fun.
Well, I mean, he's got to make it look pretty for the kids.
Yeah, I mean it's weird because you'll see him in certain scenarios, and he does seem competent, and then you see him in other ones, and it's just like, oh my god, are you fucking crazy? And I don't know if it's they drug him up for certain places, or maybe he's just able to read well off of the teleprompter, which is obviously a talent. One thing I'll say for Obama, he was very good on the teleprompter. He was terrible if you just asked him to speak in general, and the reverse was true for Trump. If you told him to read a speech, it was rough. You didn't want to hear that. But
Well,
if you
except
said,
for
"Hey,
his
just go out there and
he has
speak on whatever is on your mind," it was absolutely phenomenal. It was a joy to listen to,
hmm.
and Biden, whenever he goes off the cuff, you're looking for the guys with the straitjacket to get him back to the old folks' home.
Jesus.
I
You
mean,
know what? I'm sure his replacement Kamala is going to do fantastic though.
well,
She's, I don't know if you know this, but in some of the polls, she's rating really, really high. Like everyone really likes her, and she's got a great smile and everything. Comes off in as a good person, especially because of her track record.
Well, you know what? There's one thing that I know she loves is locking up black people. She loves that shit.
She has a history.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. A lot of her history is really, I mean, she talks about like being against marijuana and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, more recently, it's been like, oh, I used to smoke weed when I was young, but at the same time, back in the old days, she was just like, just kidding. 20 years for like, minimal stuff. It's pretty insane that she's. I don't know how the Democratic Party actually pulled that off. Honestly, I don't know why they would pick her. I mean, I know she's like, she'll do whatever the establishment says, but I don't know why they would go and pick that one person with like the worst possible track record. Like anybody would have been better.
I think you just answered your own question. She will do whatever the establishment says, and she is a person of color, and therefore, if you say anything against her, you are either a sexist, a racist, a bigot, or a combination of the above. And therefore, everything she does is fine. And I mean that works for a certain period of time, but there is a breaking point where it's just no, I mean, she's actually fucking crazy.
Once we're actually talking about like actual policies getting implemented, executive orders heading out like they are right now, like there's been over 30 executive orders so far up till today, and you start seeing like actual like repercussions for what you're doing. And Kamala's, oh man, she's gonna be doing some pretty wild stuff, I think, if she does manage to get in power. If of course Biden does end up leaving the office prematurely. Do you think that Kamala's just gonna like follow the basically what the establishment wants, or it's gonna be more of, because she's known for trying to get her like position herself in a place where she can actually get more power? Do you think that's gonna be the case?
Well, what was the name of the guy that she slept with? Like Willie something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's willing to do anything to get power.
She reminds me of Hillary Clinton, honestly.
What the heck was that Chinese spy's name? Like
Fufu, whatever.
That's yeah. Like I think that was her name.
I mean, it might have been actually,
but I think that was actually her name. Like Fang Fang Bang Bang or something like that. I don't fucking know. But yeah, she was sleeping with everyone in Washington, and judging from some of the pictures of the dudes, I mean, she really loves the homeland, shall we say? Because these guys, man, I don't think you could actually pay prostitutes to sleep with them. I mean,
clearly you could. I mean, there's a price on everybody.
It may
even
be
if it is your patriotism.
Yeah, I just
they're doing it for the country, all right.
She must be doing it for the country, because that dude was like 5 of her.
Jeez.
So
oh yeah, I mean you could roll the man is what I'm saying here. Jesus.
Yeah, he was a whole lot of man.
Yeah.
But I think he was like a what was he, like a congressman from New Jersey or something, and then there was
she went down to like local offices as well. I mean
I think let's just be frank, she got around, man. What was it? Eric Swalwell is the congressman from California who was, I guess, I don't want to say the prime target, but one of the bigger names on her list. And what was he? He was on the House Intelligence Committee.
Yep.
And then after that came out, then he was taken off the House Intelligence Committee because, sleeping with a spy is generally frowned upon.
It's interesting. They actually haven't the Swalwell office hasn't actually released any comments on that at all, and they actually still haven't removed them from that office.
Well, I thought he got
removed,
the committee, but then placed back on. It
it
was
might.
like,
You know what?
yay,
I
bad
think you're right.
but
Actually,
now that Biden's in, we're going to put you back on, and we're going to pretend like it didn't happen.
yep.
Isn't he
Pelosi
actually
put it
in
back in.
charge of the new Trump impeachment hearings, or he's one of the key members, or
I wouldn't be
something like that?
surprised, but I mean, I don't know. Pelosi's the way she's acting about the whole situation is basically just run it over, go through it. It doesn't matter. Nothing ever happened, which is typical for
Well, I mean,
Chinese people.
honestly, that is one of the greatest how should I guess advantages that you have as being a on the left is the media will not call you out on your hypocrisy. Like when Trump was signing those, I don't know what he was signing at that child's desk. Now it was a small desk, or maybe it was just made for men of smaller stature than Trump, because he did look oversized at that desk. But the media,
I mean, he's a large guy, honestly.
yeah,
So.
I mean, well, he could stand to drop a couple lbs. That's all I'm saying.
They don't look too healthy.
But the media, he beat the COVID. It is what it is. But
that is true.
The media raked him over the coals and kind of made fun of him. And honestly, it was kind of funny. He was like, yeah, that may have been a bad decision to sign him at that desk. And that being said, there's pictures of Biden now signing at that same desk and not a word. And he looks, he's a tall guy. He's like 6, I don't know, 1, 3, something like that. So
he's not a small dude.
Guy. Yeah,
he's-
so I mean, he looks at a place at that desk as well. And you didn't hear anything from the media about that. I mean, what's interesting about it, his newest spokes lady or whatever, God, she's like a retread from
The redhead?
Yeah. She's a retread from some NGO. I forgot the exact name of it. Anyways, so Biden signs that EO saying, hey, you have to wear your mask on a federal grounds or whatever. All right, fine. It is what it is. And then I think that night,
I mean, pretty
his
much
whole
all the
family
offices were already
and
doing it.
himself
But
went on all these grounds on the federal grounds and said, the mask off, damn, whatever. And when the press secretary was asked about it, obviously she just said, they were celebrating, and there's more important things that we need to worry about. Whereas if that was Trump's spokeswoman, you would hear, Trump's spokesperson says there's more important things to worry about than 6,000 people who died today. And it's like, there is definitely
the bias
an
is pretty obvious. It's palpable.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, just to correct it, it's from what I understand so far, there's been 11,000 deaths on President Biden's death. Just saying, but nobody cares.
Welcome to Joe Biden's America. I mean, you see cops running over people in Tacoma or wherever the hell that was. This is Joe Biden's America. Cops just running over protesters, people dying left and right. This is Joe Biden's
You're forgetting
America.
police are using weapons. Even the Geneva Convention banned. Technically, the tear gas is banned by the Geneva Convention.
Is it really?
Oh yeah.
Why?
Biological weapons, or not? I'm sorry, not biological weapons, but chemical weapons. Yeah.
I mean,
It
is a chemical weapon, but there's no assuming you don't have any crazy pre-existing conditions. There's no, as far as I know,
It can mess you up, man. You can asphyxiate on it if they drop like a huge thing of it. Like, yeah, it's smoke. Like it'll just take you out. Or gas. I'm sorry, but no, it'll definitely. I mean, it'll make you feel pain for sure.
Well, I mean, isn't that kind of the general purpose behind it?
Yeah, I mean, the Geneva Convention bans a lot of weapons, like biological and chemical weapons, from what I understand. Anything that's meant to, like, I believe glass bullets and stuff like that are banned as well.
Glass bullets? Who the hell is time to make a glass bullet?
I mean, somebody would. They're pretty inexpensive. Glass is inexpensive, so. But
I
you
would
can't
think
take
that that
glass
would
out,
be
you know.
more lethal than a rubber bullet. I may be mistaken on that. I don't know, but
I mean, I guess it depends on how it's made, but I feel like glass would actually like splinter off, and you can't see it because
right.
it's clear. So it makes it difficult to actually try to save someone. But that's war. But at the same time, there's rules. But
I mean,
like
imagine you're storming the beaches of Normandy, and they're shooting glass bullets at you. Just like, what the hell is this? You're getting shot with the leftovers from like Home Depot.
I can't find anything else. Bobby, just throw the goddamn glass.
Just throw it. It's fine. That actually sounds terrible.
I mean, I don't know. I've had glass in my eye, so that shit sucks.
Yeah.
I could only imagine.
I mean, my son was screaming about an eyelash in his, so I can only imagine glass probably wouldn't be too lovely. But I mean, just getting back to Joe Biden and the EOs he's signed. It's really funny how I think it was the third debate, because the second one was canceled because reasons.
I mean, it's dangerous out there. There's a lot of variants.
It is, man. Heebie-jeebies everywhere. But don't worry, they're only there when you walk into the restaurant from the hostess little booth there to your table, and then you're fine. Don't worry about it after that. That's a COVID-free zone.
It's interesting because obviously, so I live in like the DMV area, right? And Maryland, DC, all that is closed up. But when I go over to like Virginia, it's just like, oh, everything's fine. You just wear a mask inside to the restaurant, and then you're fine. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And it's like, well, how big of a problem is it really? If people actually cared, they would. I mean, it's hard, obviously, with this because it's not like it's obvious. Like, it's not Ebola, like where you have like people gushing out blood and shitting like their brains out, right? But you're having people with lung failure. Some people are reporting mental issues. I mean, there's a lot of weird symptoms with it, especially with your older folks, because that's kind of primarily who it hits hard. But there's no real, I guess there's not a real balance between the states. I mean, I guess Florida would be like the end that just doesn't care anymore. I believe Texas doesn't care anymore either. I don't know if you remember.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is, it's not so much it is state by state, but at the same time, I think people, when you talk about a group of people, you can say these people are idiots. But if you're talking about an individual person, you can actually speak to that person and just say, hey, does it make sense that we have to wear our mask from when we enter the restaurant to the bar, but then we sit at the bar drinking with a mask off for 6 hours and everything's fine? Does that make it? Does that pass the smell test? I mean, obviously it doesn't. And then you have people you have governors like Gavin Newsom in California who got caught going on like a private
multiple times,
right, multiple times
with health officials, mind you,
right, with no mask on. And then the hilarious part is after he gets caught, he comes home, and then he puts in more draconian, rules. Like now the curfew's 8:00. It's like how dare you challenge me?
I believe.
How dare you call me out? And people see that, and it's just like, all right, so I have a business. I have a hardware shop, and I have to close down because of COVID. At your mom and pop hardware store, you might have 5 people in it at max. So I have to close down. But yet Lowe's, where you have, on a busy day, I'm gonna say like 150 to 200 people at a time, and that's fine. I can't go to a restaurant
Or small
that's
business
shut down,
for the most
but
part.
I can go to Walmart and buy whatever the hell I need as long as I have a mask on that hasn't even been tested. That's fine. So people are starting to see the hypocrisy, and they're just like, why?
You
Why
know,
are there rules for
I can't
these?
really blame at the so at the very beginning of this, I was very pro mask, right? I was very like, hey, this is a serious thing. We don't actually know the repercussions of it. We don't know how deadly it can be, especially like in the January, February months when I barely heard about it. I heard like, hey, China's locking down. I know that something's going on because China just doesn't give up their economy that way. They're not willing to, because they obviously care more about their economics and people, as it's
I
been
wouldn't
shown
say
in.
people, economics.
Yeah, well, I'm saying they care more about their economics than the people.
Yeah, yeah, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
like the what is it, the Enlightenment or something like that, where they like killed millions of people. But you look at it and you're just like, at the beginning, you're just like, all right, I get it, 100%. Let's wear your N95s if you have them. But then when the moment I saw that the CDC came out and was like, hey, don't wear a mask, you're fine. We need them. That's when I was like, gone, done. Don't care anymore. I'm gonna listen to whatever I think, because this thing at the time I thought, hey, this is aerial. It's definitely aerial, and it's not droplet, based. Aerial, if you don't know, obviously, can get transmitted much more easily. I believe measles and stuff like that is transmitted through aerial transmission, but droplet transmission, obviously, you have to actually get like saliva or something similar to that, some kind of mucus, and get it onto somebody or within one of their, mucous membranes. Aerial transmission is just like, hey, suck in this air, you're gonna get sick. And I think most people at the beginning thought the same thing, that it was aerial, and that's why they were so concerned. And now it's just like, yeah, it's aerial, but 99.98% is going to be just fine. Why should I care anymore? This thing doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah,
Especially when
I
you
mean,
look at the numbers of the what the flu has actually killed this year. It's just like, no, this is ridiculous.
well, I'm just glad that we have COVID because of COVID, flu deaths are down, cardiac, heart related diseases are down. All these things are down, and I was a little late to the. I'm not really buying this party because at first I saw what we all saw coming out of China. People are falling down in the streets. People are getting welded shut in their houses. All this stuff, and the government says, "Hey, 2 weeks to not over to slow the spread and not overwhelm the hospitals." And I say, okay, based
Makes
on
sense.
what we've seen so far, that I'm okay with that. Like 28 weeks later, I don't know what the fuck, but we're still locked down for reasons unknown. And I think we started locking down in like March of last year, just for sake of argument, March. And
Hmm.
I want to say it was
That is March, yeah.
yeah. So maybe about late April, early May, they started talking about, is this virus racist? And then I said, wait a minute, wait. Is the virus racist? They said, well, yeah. I mean, because it's killing people of color more than whites and Asians.
I mean,
And
it kind of makes sense though.
well, I mean, here's the
You
thing.
have to look
When
at
you think about,
where
oh,
Hispanic
all
people
right,
and Black people actually work, and we're more prone to work in like, your positions of like waitresses, waiters, janitors, where you actually have to interact with multiple people all throughout the
well,
day,
there
instead of
is
an
that
office
as
job.
well. However, this COVID, it affects people. Uh, I would say that the comorbidities are obesity, uh,
Diabetes,
breathing problems, cardiac, high blood pressure. Like those are the main
the big ones, yeah.
comorbidities. And who has that? You have the black community and the Hispanic community, who are definitely disproportionately overweight as compared to white and Asian Americans. I'll say Asian Americans because white Americans are pretty chunky as well. But those communities
I
also
mean,
have high blood
if you go
pressure.
up to Wisconsin, just saying,
Yeah,
they like their cheese. You know what I'm saying?
there are some that look. All I'm saying is like 70% of Americans are overweight. I'm overweight. It is what it is. But,
You are very, very overweight. Yeah.
Yeah, well, fuck you too. Anyways,
I mean, just accept it. It's fine.
my point is that that just because it affects people with these conditions, and just because these conditions happen to be more within certain communities, does not make the virus racist. It means that these communities have more of these comorbidities, and therefore they're going to be affected more.
I mean, so here's the thing. Those
that's just
kinds of
common
articles
sense.
are meant for clicks, right? So, oh, this is racist or this is whatever. They're just meant for clicks. It's not like they have anything really substantive to actually have in there. It's just like, hey, we are going to put this idea out there and we just want to get the clicks. We want to get the money for it, right? But it doesn't actually mean that the virus is racist, obviously, because it's not.
Yes.
Because, virus. Well, actually, you know what, though? Huh. So,
Would
I've
George
actually had
Floyd
some
died
family.
in like May, right?
What was that?
George Floyd, he died in May or whatever, right?
June, I believe.
All right, June. So, they started having all these Black Lives Matter rallies, and then people said, "Hey, how come you're having all these, mass gathering, super spreader events, and everyone's okay with that?" And then, right on cue, I want to say it was 1,200 doctors that they got to write a note saying that white supremacy is a greater threat to this country than COVID, and therefore you should get out and protest. And I'm just looking back, and
I mean, it's a huge double standard there. It's one of those things where everyone's going to try to push their ideology the moment they have a chance to. It's not necessary. Obviously, it's not that they're right. It's just that the moment you get a chance, you got to take it, especially in politics. You never let a good tragedy go to waste, right? And that's exactly what they haven't done. I believe.
Yeah, they were able to accomplish a few, gym floors getting named after them, a few, streets getting painted. So I guess they
I mean, they've burned a couple cities as well, but.
But
peacefully.
Oh, yes. It was a mostly peaceful, fiery protest, and therefore it's fine. Because it was for good reasons. I mean, there was more damage done to a Target in DC than there was to the Capitol. But that's okay because everything's.
The Capitol was a whole different situation. I think
that was a justified outrage. What's really humorous about that is
we have to look at where people are dropping their money.
Yeah,
if these media companies are dropping their money into the pockets of these NGOs, then they're gonna protect those pockets. But if you have, it's such a weird divide here in the U.S. Obviously, you have organizations like the Boogaloos and whatever, and they're getting marketed as a right wing or movement because they can't say organization because it's multiple different sectors, but it's not. It's obviously you have like 50, 100 million, whatever different groups within the Boogaloo movement, and then you have even the BLM is split up significantly, but all this money is getting funneled down that way to certain. Not I wouldn't say necessarily, but the Boogaloos, but a lot of left wing politics is getting funded by big media, and there's not a whole lot you can really do to it. It's for me, it's hard because I don't consider myself left or right wing necessarily. I think I have a little bit more conservative upbringing and everything, but I mean, I don't see any problem with like welfare to a certain extent and stuff like that. But it's a good balance that you're supposed to maintain, and I think that a lot of these groups are pushing to such extremes nowadays that it's so hard to place yourself anywhere, right? I mean, where would you place yourself nowadays politically?
Well, I used to consider myself conservative, not necessarily Republican, but maybe like 2014, 15 in that range. I started doing some research on my own and just kind of like, you know what? There's a lot of messed up things that the Republican Party does, and I started looking more like, hey, how can we fix things here in the homeland? So I would more
Don't
say
use
I'm
homeland. Jesus Christ.
American first nationalist. Like I want to take care of the people who are here in America before we worry about other people. I
Now,
don't see a reason.
do you
I mean,
believe that?
I understand why they have like H1B visas and all that stuff because the corporations want cheaper labor. And I mean, it just is what it is. That's what they want.
I mean, that's how
what
you make
they
money,
say.
yeah.
They tell the politicians, say, "Hey, we're gonna fund your opponent if you don't vote for this measure." And the politicians say, "Well, I like the job. I only have to work." I mean, I use work in quotations here. I like the job. I don't have to show up at like 80 days a year, and then I make 75,000 or whatever for not doing much. So they say, all right, great. This isn't going to affect me. But I look at it as this is affecting the people who are here in America. Why don't we take care of Americans first, regardless of color, and then we can worry about other people. And that's the other.
So let me stop you there.
All right.
So, what if taking care of Americans means that, just to choose a random populace, the Uyghurs die? Right? Because we don't have any real vested interest within the Uyghurs, right? They're just Muslims that are getting, they're getting essentially exterminated by the Chinese. We don't have any vested interest there, really, because they're going to produce more and more people, the Chinese, regardless. So should we step in that, even if it's not necessarily Americans that are getting hurt?
Well, that is a difficult question to answer, just because do we have a moral, I guess, responsibility to say, hey, that's wrong? You can say, hey, that's wrong.
I mean, we're the world police, like it or
Well,
not.
I don't think we
are.
should be. Because, yes, that is wrong. However, are you willing to sacrifice, let's say for sake of argument, that your neighbor is in the military or you have friends in the military, and you say, hey, yeah, I'm willing to let you die for them. Over
We have a
in
lot
China,
of nukes.
who I don't fucking know.
We have a lot of nukes.
That's it's not going to be a nuclear war. That's off the table. But my point is, if it becomes a land war on either continent, I mean, how many of your friends are you willing to sacrifice for these people that you don't know based on general principle? And would you, as someone who, let's just say for sake of arguments, someone who isn't in the military says, yes, I want to do the right thing. Okay, fantastic. Would you be willing to strap on some fucking armor and go charge the beaches? And if your answer is no, then I don't think we should be in there, because I don't think that American lives are worth sacrificing for.
So what you're saying is you're like an American supremacist.
Sure. I am an American first guy. I want to take care of the people here.
No, I understand it. I think that there has to be a certain point where because your morals and ethics have to come into play at one point or another, because regardless of what you think may have happened during, the Great Enlightenment, during the Conquista, which was obviously when the Spanish came in and committed genocide, or when you talk about
They just handed out blankets. It's fine.
the wrong peoples.
Well, whatever, man.
They just came and like
it was
literally
alarm
burned
behavior.
everything. The Conquista was like more like, hey, let me string you up and then light your feet on fire, and then there you go, you're saved.
Was a lesson learned?
And I guess it was
Was
actually
a
because
message
Mexico's like
sent?
super Catholic nowadays, so I guess technically yes.
You're welcome.
Not approved, but not an approved method here. But but no, you have to look at it in that sense. You have to like when I look at America, I look at it in the sense that the U.S. is the greatest country in the world now, and I'm hoping forever. Like our the fact that we maintain a certain level of liberties, and the fact that we continuously try to promote them, even though if there's certain groups that try to replace them. But the
Oh, the
fact that we actually
Voldemorts.
fight for them, what was that?
The Voldemorts, those who shall not be named.
Jesus Christ. Yes, there's people who do not agree with people having liberty, but I do, and I think that the ideal of America is more of it's not necessarily it isn't really diversity. It's more of just growth, right? Constant expansion is how I view it. And you always grow and you make yourself better. That's the whole point of America. And if you don't expand, you can't make yourself better. And that's why I think personally the US should expand, and not through means of war necessarily, except when necessary, but through our ideology. We have the greatest ideology behind a country. We have the most freedoms, and we should expand that because other countries are wrong and we're right. Like, like honestly, like who am I kidding? Why shouldn't you have self defense? You know, and there obviously there's certain ideas that we can get better. I think that the healthcare system is completely screwed. Like I shouldn't have to pay like a ridiculous amount of money for like an EpiPen, like Mr. Biden just implemented, right?
No, it's fine.
Well, sorry, not implemented, but the executive order he came out with blocking the previous president's order on pharmacology, right? Or pharmaceuticals. And that's one of those things that I think most Americans aren't thinking about, right? Because yeah, the president has a certain amount of power, but we can't let our American ideals actually die. The idea of a free America can't die unless we let it, right? Of course. Do you think that within the next 2 years, right, which is what I'm giving the president currently, do you think he'll create a more dangerous ideology within politics in the sense that it'll be extremely divided like it'll become much more divided, or do you think it'll be more of a narrowing back to what it was like just regular establishment back in the day, or do you think it's more like the genie's in the box and like that's it, you know? What do you think?
I think that what Trump did was allow a lot of topics to become a mainstream conversation that were taboo before. And therefore, I think people are going to fight back and say, hey, no, this is fucked up. I don't think we should do this for XYZ reason. So when you say return to the politics of old, uh, they they may want that, but there's, let's say, of the 75 million who voted for Trump, let's just say there's at least 60 who say, you know what, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to go back to the old ways. I want to move forward. So no, I don't. I don't think that there's going to be a coming together, because right now you have
I mean,
two
what
different
option does that leave us with
ideologies.
then?
That leaves us with, honestly, that leaves us in a tight spot, because if we can't agree that 2 plus 2 equals 4, then I don't know what to do exactly. If you have, for sake of argument, the Democrats and the Republicans who both have a common goal at the end and just two ways to reach it, you can work together.
I mean,
Meaning,
that is
hey,
what they
I,
have
I
been
want to
doing
go this
recently.
way, and I want to, and someone says I want to go this way, and the other side says I want to go that way, but we both want to arrive at the same ending point. Then you can work together to come up with a compromise. But if one person wants to go left and one person wants to go right, then what do you do at that point? There's no there's
I
no
mean, do you
middle
believe in a
ground.
peaceful
It's like,
divorce?
hey, I want the government to control everything, and then the other side says, hey, I want limited government. Where is your common ground? There's no common ground on the First Amendment because of this so-called hate speech. There's no common ground on the Second Amendment. There's no common ground on the Fourth Amendment. There's no common ground on any of the basic rights that Americans the, that America was actually founded on. It's
So
basically
you
just,
you don't think that there's a way out for us then?
I
Because
think there
I mean,
is.
I think as Americans, we're all drawn to one thing, and that's liberty. And I understand that there's certain groups within the U.S. that don't agree with it necessarily, or in our vision of liberty, but it's all liberty, right?
Well,
And it's all about education, right?
do you think Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, AOC, what the like in any of those people in Congress and the Senate, do you think any of those people who are, like, household names, do you think any of them say personal liberty is the foundation of America, or is it only personal liberty is the foundation of America in the context that we agree with? If we don't agree with your personal ideology, therefore you are some sort of racist, biggest, sexist, domestic
But isn't that the
terrorist.
whole point of the different parties? Now, why I don't agree in political parties, all right? I don't like them. I don't think they should be around. But I understand that they're a reality, and that's every party represents a different subsect of groups, and obviously I have an issue with the two party system that we have currently, and I think we should have way more if we are going to go with a multiple party system. But at the same time, we have to look at it and be like, hey, we have to realize, okay, what is the only path forward? It's to work together at one point or another, right? Because we're not. The U.S. isn't like most countries where you can just be like, oh, well, all your liberals are here and all your, And I understand that a lot of liberals are in your big cities and stuff, but at the same time, it's expanding, especially with companies and stuff. They're a lot of companies are moving out to Texas or more conservative areas, and it's just going to expand from there.
Well, here's an example that I like to use. There is a children's book. It's called The Wump World by Bill Peet. So basically, what happens is there are these creatures known as the Wumps, and they look like sheep, and they live on a planet, and they're eating grass, and everything's fine. And then these aliens land. These aliens are called the pollutants, and they land and say, "Hey, what a great planet this is! Everything is so fresh and clean. I love this place." So they land in great numbers, and they start building up cities, and pollution's everywhere, and the Wumps are forced underground. Over time, the pollutants say, this place is dirty, it's disgusting, I can't stand it. So they send off, I guess, people to find a new planet. One of them comes back and says, hey, I find this new planet, it's green, it's clean, let's all go there. And they say, this is fantastic. So they all fly off to this different planet to basically start all over again. And the Wumps come up and they're like, well, my world's kind of a piece of shit right now, but there's this one green pasture over here. And that's the same way I view liberals, is they go from places like California to Texas, or from Maryland to Virginia, or just in general from a blue area to a red area, and say, wow, this place is fucking fantastic. But it could use some changes. We don't have enough trannies in office. And it's just
Jesus.
like, well, why the fuck did you move here? You moved here because you liked the area, you liked what was going on here. Why would you vote to change it?
Yeah, but
And
at the
I
same
don't
time,
understand why they.
we
why
have
they
to look
see
at the
things
difference.
that-
We have to look at the difference between liberal as in economically and liberal as in socially, because they are very, very different things. Okay,
Yes and no.
I don't
because
personally like myself.
haven't
I don't
met-
care what people do in their fucking home. I don't care. It's not my problem. Okay, as long as they're
Right,
not like
well-
like touching kids or some weird shit like certain presidents, then I don't care. But
He smells them.
close enough. But but if we're talking economically, like myself, I'm more conservative. I don't want our money to get wasted. And I think there's a lot of union workers within the, obviously the biggest union in the U.S. is like the government workers, and they're a huge waste of money because we haven't gone in there and audited the hell out of them, and they refuse to do it to this day. And it's one of those things where I look at it socially at the same time, and I'm like, well, do I want to help the mother who, who's pregnant, who the father's a piece of crap and he left? Yeah, I want to help him. And I understand that's a little bit of both, a certain level of social issues and as well as financial. But should I reward it? No. Should I help him? Yes. You have to strike a balance within everything, because you can't. I don't believe in being strictly conservative or strictly liberal, because it just doesn't work. You have to balance everything out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I was, this is probably like 12 years ago or so, but I was on unemployment, and I agree with unemployment. It is a nice safety net to have, even though I think I was getting like $1,200 a month, which isn't all that much. But I was on it for maybe like 3 to 4 weeks, and I agree. Like, that is a safety net that I think should be there. However, I do not think it should be a lifestyle. That is there to kind of be your crutch while you change career paths.
It's
while
help,
you try to
not
find a new job.
a
It's there
home.
to help. It is not there to say, hey, Papa Government will take care of you. XYZ happened, and that's not fair. So just come into Papa Government's arms, and we will solve all your problems. Just vote blue. It's fine. And that's my biggest problem.
You know what, though?
Is you see these.
So here's
you
my
see
other
these
issue.
areas that are just decimated by like teenage birth rates, out of wedlock more specifically, but don't worry, Papa Government's stepping in. You don't need no man, because Uncle Sam is here, and Uncle Sam will put you up in Section 8. We'll put you up, we'll give you all this free stuff.
I mean, I think that's when you decide to bring in some repercussions
but
and some
what are the consequences?
stricter legislation.
We have removed consequences for bad decisions. If you make a bad decision, if you sleep with some dude who's a fucking gangbanger and he goes to jail, what's going to happen to you?
Well, you have
It
to.
used
I think we have to look at
used
it in
to
a
be
broader
that you
sense,
were
because
fucking
it's
shit out of luck.
it's not a party problem.
It's not.
It's a
I
social
didn't say it's a
problem.
party problem. I said it's a societal problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we can't have but however, that is enabled.
I mean, the Republicans
by
do the same thing with war.
majority being on the left. That is a behavior that is enabled. Whenever you give something for free, you are going to get more of that. It just is what it is. Anytime something is free, people are going to get more of it. If I can go to my neighbor's house and my neighbor will give me $1 every day, I go over there, knock on the door, and say, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm going to go over there and knock on the door and get my $1. Whereas I wouldn't generally. Anytime you incentivize a behavior, you get more of it.
I
And
agree.
that is something that people don't understand.
But we also can't. So it's hard because I don't want to punish a child, right, a newborn or something like that because of their mother's actions. If the mother isn't willing or is not capable, then you remove the child. That's how
To
I
a
view
good
it.
home, because I got my qualms with child protective services.
Well,
Like
that's because
I don't
you're a
I mean
terrible
I
person.
got my
No, I'm
problems with them.
kidding.
But if you could, if you can get that child into a good home, then I don't think that's necessarily a
Well,
bad thing.
so here's
However,
my problem with that, though.
there are I, three very, you would think, very simple rules, and you have like I want to say it's like a 90% chance of never being poor. One, you finish high school. You finish high school.
Hmm.
Two, you wait till you're married to have a kid. And three is you have a job. If you can do those three things, there's a 90% chance that you will not be poor. Now, people love to say,
I mean, the
well,
definition
I
of
mean,
poor is
how can
pretty
you
broad,
know,
man.
huh?
'Cause you have to think the definition of poor is pretty broad
Well,
because
all right,
you have to think
you
if I'm
you
poor
will
in San
not be.
Francisco, you can be poor in San Francisco with like 60,000 a year. You
All
can be
right,
poor as shit.
I'm talking like overall generalities. If you see the majority of people who are on welfare, I would bet dollars to donuts that 50% of them, at least 50%, did not do one of those three.
I mean, then again, currently we're looking at a generation that is very different because the majority of the people that are homeless, or a good portion of them at least, are, you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of veterans out there that are, diagnosed with PTSD or not diagnosed with PTSD, but are out there and currently are homeless. And there's a lot of people who, are from other foreign wars that are out there as well. There's a large populace out there that are just mentally ill. How do you actually solve that though? You know what I'm saying?
You mean from like PTSD or
Not just
just have
PTSD, but
issues
everything
because
else.
I want to say it was in the 80s where they just opened up the nut houses and were just like, go free, everything's going to be
That's
fine.
exactly what happened, and I think that's a huge problem. We need to open up the nut houses and actually make them, humane and actually help people, because there's some people out there who all they need sometimes is like 20 milligrams of Prozac and they'll be fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, there is people who can like sweep some floors as long as they're on like 20 milligrams of Prozac every day and they'll be fine. So like, we need to actually put it out there like, hey, we'll help you. Just take this and you'll be fine. You'll contribute to society. You're not going to cause any issues anymore. Bam, better society. And we have to push that as well, And it's something, obviously, I mean, I think particularly amongst males, it's something that we frown upon, right? We never go for help, right? Like, why
That
would
is
you,
true.
like, man
If you're
man the
sick,
fuck up.
males don't go to the doctors. We just don't ask for help. It is
Yeah,
what
I
it
mean,
is.
shit, I've done it myself. I've had, like, literally, I've had, at the time while I was working, I was like, hey, I'm having some chest issues, which means my chest was tightening up and stuff, because I was taking too much caffeine, I guess, and I was riding like a lot on the bicycle and stuff, like over 10, 20 miles a day, and I was getting some, some pressure and stuff, and I was like, hey, I can't feel my arm. Take me to the doctor if I pass out. If I don't worry about it. And it's just one of those things, you're just like, a typical person should, like, you have chest pressure, like you don't feel your arm, that's called a heart attack, genius. Go away.
Nah.
Like, and amongst males, I think that's a huge issue. Well, we refuse to talk about emotion and like really anything physical. any kind of pain that you feel at all. And I mean, it's a detriment, not just to our medical system in general, because obviously if you catch something preventatively, it's going to be better for you, right? And you're going to be able to produce longer. But it's a detriment to future generations as well, I mean, that is something we have to tackle. Unfortunately, with this new generation, they're going to be hit with just going back to Mr. Biden's here. You can just go ahead and just change genders, and then you can complain, I guess.
Well, I mean, if that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel. Now, it does seem that this society we're in currently prioritizes feelings over facts. And what I mean by that is, like, does this hurt your feelings versus is it true? It may hurt your feelings, but is it true? Like, are you a terrible person? This person said you're a terrible person. That made you feel bad. Now you want to get that person fired, but are you actually a terrible person? Because if you are a terrible person, then why do you want to get that person fired? All you're doing is proving that person's point. So, when you live in a, for sake of argument, feels over reals type of environment, then you're not going to fix anything, because you're going to be so concerned about people's feelings versus how they are, what the actual fact is.
I mean, I think
and one thing I have picked up.
I think it's just caring too much. Within our society, yes, we have the time to care.
Too much per se. It's looking for a reason to care.
I could agree with that. Yeah.
Almost like, okay, this exception to the rule, therefore you need to change the entire rule. Well, no, that person is the exception to the rule, and therefore that only proves the rule. We don't need to change the rule for that exception. Because if you say, hey, people, only succeed in the NBA if they're over 6'6". Therefore, you have a person who is, for sake of argument, 5'5", and you say, well, this person succeeds, and therefore now everyone needs to be accepted into the NBA who is 5'5". Well, no, that person is the exception to the rule. So therefore, the rule doesn't need to be changed. It's interesting. One of the few areas...
Sounds like Muggsy.
Yeah. Muggsy Bogues, yeah.
Yeah.
What was
one of the few sports people that I know.
Spud Webb actually won a dunk contest. I think he was like 5'6" or something.
Dude was tiny.
Yeah.
So
he
let me look this up real quick.
But I guess my overall point is just
the dude was 5'3".
Damn, he was that short. Yeah.
God damn, son.
He was like a fun-sized basketball player.
Oh my god, he's a dwarf, I think.
I don't know if he could ride those roller coasters.
I'm pretty sure he can't even get on a bumper car. Jesus.
Like, yeah, but you're gonna need to, need an adult on this ride with you or something. But I guess just relating to athletics, the only place where we actually have in today's society merit-based jobs is in athletics. We want to see the best people do these particular jobs, where in every other,
the military is relatively merit-based, I think,
or not so much like, hey, my team's gonna win, I'm counting on the best talent. We have, we need to make it fair. Shit, man. Why not make it fair in the NBA? Why not have,
I think most physical
on each team
places
have somebody who's under 5'5". Why not make that a rule?
I think most physical places or physical jobs, they're more merit based, obviously, because it's like,
not
what
necessarily
can you?
True. Because
I'm only talking about like military wise as well, because there's some females who go out there and like I was hearing, some of the female officers and stuff actually went through infantry school, which is not an easy school to go through. It's one of your more harder beginner schools to go through. Um, it's a difficult school. A lot of people don't pass. It's not easy. It's tough. It breaks your body. It's meant to break your body. So there's definitely some women who can, make it. But obviously, genetically, it doesn't work, right? So genetically, where men are primarily meant to kind of do more harder, more strenuous work, more heavy loads, more, a lot of endurance. I can't necessarily say, because endurance, actually, women and men actually are pretty even. But with speed and stuff like that, we're pretty fucking different.
Well, that's the good thing, though. I'm very proud of Biden for being so progressive about this. With one of his new EOs, he said that if you receive funding from the government, you need to allow transgenders to play in whatever sport they identify as. And you know what? Okay, fine. I would like to see a bunch of 6'8" dudes who didn't make the cut on the college basketball team to just roll over all these women who are 5'8". I think that would be hilarious to me.
It's gonna happen.
Equality. I think the biggest thing that I think that women should stop focusing on trying to be what men are and more focus on being what women are. And just it.
They have their own particulars that they're better
type environment. I would say that the best content that anyone will ever produce is a child. As a man, the best content that you're ever going to produce is a child with a woman that you love. Point blank, period. That's the best content that you're ever going to produce. And
what are we talking about? Like postmodernism?
Fuck postmodernism. That's some bullshit.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. Like, general, it just depends on your society.
The best thing that you're ever going to produce is not a fucking YouTube video. It's not an arcade game. It's
life.
It's life. That is.
I would agree with you.
For sake of argument, that is a goddamn superpower. I can't do that. There's
but
no
here's the thing:
there's a surgeon I can go to now.
There's no more reverence on that, though, man. There's no more reverence on what a woman actually means, or what it means to be a woman. There's no reverence on what it means to be a father. There's no reverence on what it means to be a family, because there's something definitely very important about it. But people don't care. People would just ignore it. It doesn't matter anymore, and you choose your own path. And while I agree with choosing your own path, there's certain things that I think we should definitely look as not just important, but they should be revered in a certain sense, right? Because that's what keeps our society alive, right? Women, men, families, children.
The building block of all societies is a family. That's where it starts. Mm-hmm. Now, you could make the argument that the reason our society is in decline is because the family has been destroyed. Now, even intact families these days, you have both parents working full-time jobs, and that kid, he goes to school, he goes to daycare. It's 6:00 by the time they pick up. That kid is not involved in any sort of extracurricular activities. When the parents come home, they're tired. They're just mentally exhausted from whatever they do. Even if they both have office jobs, they're tired from all day at the office, mentally speaking. Mm-hmm. That child isn't going to do a lot of the things that a child.
They're not parents at that point, though.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, well, now we've picked you up from the babysitter. That babysitter may have taken those kids to the park. Those parents aren't taking the kids to the park in general. I'm not saying that
I
two
mean,
parents who can't work or who both work don't do things for their kids. But what I am saying is that,
a lot of lessons they can't be taught.
yeah, I mean, when you take the parents out of the child's picture and you place this child into the state's care, be it
Nannies or
school,
teachers or whatever.
yeah, then the state itself is that child's parent.
I mean, I think that's where it
And
kind of
that
gets scary.
child
Yeah.
will learn the state's values, not the family values, because that child is with the parent for 3 hours a day, and that child is with the state for
And I think that's where you got to
9
look
hours
at
a
like
day.
whether the state's going to look out for itself or look out for you as a family, and whether the state is going to be out there and be like, hey, what should we actually fund? Where's the money actually going to go to? Creating better families or creating a stronger state?
Well, if you create a better family, then you create a weaker state, and therefore that's not
Wrong.
where the money's
You
going to
just
go.
give me more money and I make a
Yeah.
better state.
Well, of course.
Yeah, yeah. That's
I
how it
mean,
works, dude. If you didn't know.
Yeah. Well, yes. Of
course.
I would say I have two kids, and I would say that one of my biggest regrets, honestly, is not having more. I love my two kids, but hindsight 2020.
You wish there were more?
I wish I would have had more. And I think people should have as many kids as they can take care of. If you can't take care of your kids, you shouldn't have kids.
So
But if you
here
can
is
take
my
care of-
here's one of the
of-
things. I agree with you actually. I think that people should procreate more because it teaches us a lesson. Because I raised my little nieces and nephews for a long time and that taught me a lot. But I don't think it should be necessarily dependent on you to certain financial aspects. Because the thing is, politics can one day go from, hey, your minimum wage is $5 to your minimum wage is $20, and that $20 becomes worthless.
Yeah.
Money is, or not money, currency is, it fluctuates, and I don't think that's fair to the family itself. Right?
Well, you used to be able to work at a supermarket as a
Manager?
a clerk, and you'd be able to support your family.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can get into this topic at a different time, but since roughly 1913, the value of a dollar has plummeted like 95%.
Mm-hmm.
My dad used to tell me stories about how he could go to the movies, get a ticket, popcorn and shit like that for like 50 cents.
I mean, that's kind of, honestly, it's really sad to look at now because you look at how much they actually bought a home for and you're just like, wait, you only needed one parent to buy a home back then? And your other person could actually, your partner could actually stay home and actually raise your child like they should? I think it's
what
been a
did we
slow
have back then?
demolition. What was that?
And what did we have because of that? We had stronger families, stronger communities, stronger everything. But we had a weaker state. Therefore, something's got to give. And it's much easier to say, hey, if we take the women out of the home, put them in the workforce, then we can, one, double our tax base, two, drive down wages.
What do you think?
Three, have the kid to teach them what we want.
What do you think was it in 1913 that actually caused the issue?
Well, not me. It was a creature from
A lot of suffering, would you say?
I'm a feminist, and I'd want to end their suffering, but it is what it is.
No, no.
But I think a lot of it just came from just when you it starts with the kids. I'm sorry. It starts with
you
the
start
family.
dissolving the family.
It starts
and
with the family, but if you dissolve the family, you get to the kids. The kids obviously become the next adults, and if you have shaped the next generation of adults, then you're off and running. Like, don't send your kids to Rome and be surprised when they come back as Romans.
I mean, it makes
Right?
sense, honestly. Yeah.
So
I mean,
don't send your kids to these schools or organizations and then be surprised when they come back.
well, here's the thing, though.
Parodying
A
the
lot of
exact
that is
same
masked.
rhetoric that's being taught out there.
Because you send kids out to college, and you think you're sending them out to get a further education in whatever, sciences or whatever they may believe or what they want to learn, and really, you're just sending them out to like an indoctrination camp. But you don't know that, and that's the problem nowadays.
I think people are more aware of it now. However, if you're not in a specific industry, be it the trades industry, the IT industry, those are pretty much the only two industries where you don't necessarily need a college degree to get your foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And when college is now something you have to have, then parents are kind of like, well, I just hope that I have taught my kid enough to, I guess, see through what they're being told and just get through these 4 years. But 4 years is a long ass time to be around.
I mean, that's a lot of indoctrination. So.
It's a lot of indoctrination, and it has a lot to do with your friends. And it's much easier as an adult to say, well, fuck them, I don't have to pay attention to these people, versus being 19 years old and saying, I'm away from my family, I'm away from the friends I used to know. I only have one friend so far. I'd like to make more, but this person is going this way. I don't want to just sit at home on Friday night. It's much easier to say, yeah, Orange Man
it's a weakness,
bad. Well, I mean, it's not as it is, but it isn't. It's also something that you learn as you get older. You are okay.
I mean, as
with
time goes
having,
by, you kind of learn that you don't want things to change. You don't want everything to change. You don't want everything to change. I'm saying you don't want everything to change as you get older. You want some things to stay the same because you knew they worked, because they're the right thing. And I think a lot of people that are growing up don't have the time, especially with how ideas move nowadays. They don't have the time to go, hey, this is actually a good idea, because they don't have the time to experience it, because they're just like, oh, instinct. This is wrong. This is right.
Well,
there's no time to
be
think.
Said for like your traditions, just as a community in general, your traditions and morals are there because they kept you safe over thousands of years. Like, that's why you're here today, because of past traditions and morals. And when you throw those out the window, then you're throwing out, it's not going to work. Because
what about
that's
when
what
it doesn't
got
work,
you
though?
here. I'm sorry?
What about when it doesn't work?
It works in certain cases. It doesn't work.
I mean, look
overall.
look at what happened with the Chinese, right? The communists back there. I mean, at this point,
they
it
got
is
rid of their
tradition.
They got rid of their culture and tradition, and for whatever reason,
communism
said,
is a tradition now. Though
we're just gonna have guys 20 years, 40 years down the line. Oh my God, there's no women for these Chinese males to fucking to procreate. We're gonna have a problem. They didn't see it that way. So no, I would say they threw the traditions and morals out the window.
What if they became the tradition? Is what I'm saying, though, because that's what effectively they're doing now.
Well, currently, right now, they are economically enslaving Africa, and they're just going to say,
very
hey,
much
well,
are.
you guys who can't find a Chinese girl, there's like 60...
Han Chinese, to be precise.
Yeah, they're
because that's
just
the
like
only right
there's
kind of
fucking
Chinese.
African girls over here, and they're pretty much all our economic slaves. So, you know, here you go. So that's what the Chinese are currently doing.
I mean,
I mean, I
it's
mean,
actually pretty crazy what they've actually been doing to the women out
it
there.
it,
Actually,
it is statistically genius because what they are doing is they took the American way and say, hey, we can do the American way, which is basically bomb these people into submission, or we can just say, hey, we'll give you this loan at this high ass interest rate that we know you're not going to be able to pay back. You are going to build our fucking roads and shit under our supervision the way we want it done. You are going to do that. And by the way, since you can't pay back your loan, we're just going to confiscate
traps.
that now.
so
Yeah.
Djibouti
So
is actually one of
they are
those.
basically they are letting the African nations build their infrastructure and then taking that infrastructure that the African nations paid
Well,
for
so
and
on that
saying
same
that's ours
concept,
now because you couldn't pay the debt.
just to bring it
It's
back a little
economic
bit,
slavery.
do you? Oh, of course, but so Djibouti and the majority of Africa, and actually the majority of, I believe, it's Eastern Africa is actually under Chinese control at the moment, just because it's easier to get rid or get in contact with. But do you think that the Chinese government is going to push the same ideology they've been pushing out through their continent of multiplying throughout the Africas? Because here's the thing. When the Chinese actually went into Africa, they gave jobs to not the Africans, but themselves. They just made more money for themselves, and they paid themselves. You know, it's a communist country, so the money's not going anywhere else other than with them. So you have to kind of look at it in that sense. It's kind of wild. I mean, you look at the way the structure and the society is actually built. It's pretty insane, right? I mean, I'm sure you know about the Chinese owning a huge portion of DC. I don't know if you heard about that.
I know
And San
I
Francisco.
know that they know like I know that they own certain areas. Could you enlighten me on what specific areas they own? I know that they own a lot of Hollywood
So
and the NBA.
they own a large portion of San Francisco. They obviously, because Chinatown down there, but just
Right.
not just Chinatown, obviously, but other parts of there. They own a big portion of DC, actually pretty close to the capital as well. They've been buying slowly because obviously they have a lot of money because it's a country buying it instead of people, even though obviously they come off as just regular citizens. But it's pretty prominent, man. Um, it's one of those things that you have to kind of look at and be like, hey, what's their end goal? You look at what they're lobbying every day. You look at what they're lobbying, what they have been lobbying throughout the last 4 years. And it's pretty prominent what they've been doing. They've been trying to get us out of the Indo-Pacific, which is a proper term, instead of the Chinese Sea. Screw them. But the Indo-Pacific is that area where Japan is, in between Japan, Vietnam, and the Philippines and all that. But it's one of those things that they're trying to take over, because if they control that trade route, they control them. I think, what is it? Oh my god! I think it's like it's at least like a third of the world, economics that they actually would control.
Yeah, and see, that is an instance where I am okay with the U.S. saying we're going to put a couple of carriers out here.
Oh, so he's all of a sudden okay with
No, no, I
the
said
U.S. being a world
that is one
fucking
of the
police.
cases. I don't think we should drop bombs of freedom on countries.
Just
But,
nations.
I mean, in the ocean, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
True
But
love.
to keep free shipping lanes open, I think that is a worthy cause for quote unquote intervention, but more just kind of like, hey, I'm here. Don't do any fucking shiesty shit. And I'm okay with that because it's just you're showing a presence, you're showing force, and you're allowing free commerce to commence versus a country saying, hey, if you want to come through here, it's going to cost you XYZ. I mean, the U.S. already gave the Panama Canal back to China, or to China, not back to China.
Yeah.
So China owns the Panama Canal, which is an issue. I'm not sure if Biden. I want to say Trump rescinded some of the leases on the ports in California that China owned. I think he took some of those away.
They've been working on it, yeah.
I'm not sure if Biden has given those back, but if he does, that's another thing. So now you have China owning, not renting, not owning ports.
I mean, that's kind of what they've been doing for a while. They've been going up, basically saying, hey, we'll build you this awesome dock, and then, which is obviously a huge amount of money, and then they're like, when you can't pay the debt on it, we'll go in and own it. And that's kind of their whole goal, right?
I don't think that's necessarily what they're doing here. I think what they're doing is they're bribing the politicians to say, why don't you just turn a blind eye?
I mean, Californian politicians have been known to be bribed constantly by the
I don't
Chinese
think it's
government.
necessarily like they're not economically saying, hey, you can't pay this debt. They're saying, hey, here's $500,000, $2 million. Why don't you just worry about your family and we'll worry about this? And the politicians say, well,
I mean, that's a problem, though. We have sleazy politicians who we refuse to kick out.
That is a huge problem. We need to invest in American rope and lampposts.
Kind of as a kind of final thought here. I know we've kind of been jumping around a whole lot into different issues within China and different stances by the Biden regime. But do you think that, in general at least, the Biden regime is going to cause an uplift in the American people, as in it's going to cause an action that's going to be good, or it's going to be an action that's going to be actually bad, as in violent, or it's going to be, hey, we're going to push on through it and find something better? What do you actually think is going to be the outcome from the American people?
Well, I think anytime corporations get involved, the American people get screwed. I think places like Silicon Valley.
I mean, do you believe in breaking points, though?
No, because fucking Netflix is on. Let's go watch that. Yeah, I'm on unemployment, but Netflix is on. There's a good series. We can go watch that.
So what point do we go, hey, this is the breaking point for Americans? Because, I mean, regardless of what you think of what actually happened, on January 6th, Americans decided to go in the Capitol and tell their representatives they were not happy with what was going on.
And then
at what point happened? Are they going to go, hey, back the hell up? I'm going to go back.
What happened? They came back 12 hours later and said, fuck you. We're doing it anyways. Now,
okay, but how many Americans does it take to stop that
later? But what happened? They said, "Wow, well, that's terrible. You're all domestic terrorists now. Congratulations." And we're gonna do whatever we want to do anyways, regardless of what the facts are. So I personally think that everyone has a breaking point. I'm not sure what that. Everyone is different. Everyone has a different breaking point. I'm not sure what the breaking point is.
I mean, it's a nation, so it's hard to know.
Netflix is on, man.
You're right. It is on.
$15 a month, or I can pay my buddy $5. It's on. I can just sit back and chill. So as long as people,
it's so hard because
people have something to fall back on.
So what you're saying is basically no one is going to do anything unless they're at that point where they have nothing to do.
Until
unless
people
people
lose
are bored.
everything and they lose it, they will retreat into a corner. They will retreat, retreat, retreat until there is nowhere else to go. That is why you never corner an animal. You always leave that person with a way out, whether it be sports, whether it be Netflix, whether it be porn. You always leave that person with something to cope with. Because when you take everything from that person, that's when the problems occur.
I mean,
Because that
I
person
feel
has
like
nothing
Q
to
was the
lose.
last coping mechanism, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, in order for in today's society, it was different 200 years ago, where testosterone was four times what it is now, and we didn't have a surveillance state and all that other nonsense. But what I'm saying is, as long as the people are left with some sort of coping device, they won't revolt to the level that threatens them. You
Okay,
may get a little thing here and there, but that'll get shut down.
I can agree with that. Yeah, I mean, it's such a difficult situation where we're kind of stuck at where we have to balance in between, hey, how much security do I really need, and how much security am I willing to actually give up for a certain amount of liberties. And I think that's kind of a it's an American ideal that we're slowly it's getting degraded, unfortunately, um, throughout the generations. But I think there's a lot of it that's still very alive and vibrant, you know? Especially with the Gen Z, from what I understand, they're actually very pro libertarian. And I'm actually hopeful for that, I don't think that we're going to run into. I mean, I guess we will run into the issue of people who are trying to, block that liberty. But I think the new generations are slowly going to realize. I'm hoping if this generation, that we're living in, actually has, raises their kids right and everything, and prioritizes the liberties that we fought for and have continuously fought for and died for. I think that the future generations can actually make something great out of it. Um, Now, I know I understand, folks. We kind of went off on a tangent here, but I know we were kind of focusing primarily on the Biden administration and everything. But the Biden administration has a lot more to it than what people think. There's a lot of social cultural issues within it. I know, Dave. I'm sure you can agree with that. Um, Now, it would you say there's any final thoughts that are extremely important to the Biden administration and what they can do, and how you would prefer people to act in the method that would actually prevent it?
Well, I would say just my closing thought here would be key bono. Who benefits? And the question of why. If you have kids and your child asks you why, that is the most annoying question in the world, because at some point it's just because I said so, goddammit. I want people to say to themselves when they see something, who benefits and why. Why is this person doing this? Who benefits? Don't look at it as a red blue team type thing. Look at it as a us versus them. Who benefits from this decision and who does not? Who is reaping the rewards? Who has to bite the bullet? And why? What outcome are they trying to get? And if we stop looking at things, look, both parties do have their ideological differences, but at the end of the day, it's not red versus blue, it's us versus them. And I do just like people, if I had my wish, I would like people to stop seeing it as a red versus blue and more of a us versus them. And just who benefits and why. Who benefits, who is
The
hurt.
controllers and basically the masters and the slaves. essentially.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I think there's people who do manage this and who actually, have the monetary funds to actually control everything. And I think we have to put our word out and be like, hey, don't let yourself get controlled, or don't let yourself get brainwashed. And we have to fight hard for what we are and what we stand for, and not allow people to just dictate who we are and what we are. There's going to be pain and there's going to be suffering throughout it, but do not allow yourself to actually be, circumvented, or allow yourself to actually be, mastered by somebody else. You have to be something different. You have to, play your role. The only person who can actually decide what your role is yourself. And that's what I want to bring across. At the end of the day, you have no leaders. You are the leader that you choose to be, right? And we kind of went off on a rant here a little bit. And I understand that. Hopefully you guys will actually join us next time on 3 Beers, 1 Cup. I know the name is awesome, right? I get it. Everyone loves it. No, but you can join us on Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Spotify. I believe on Apple Podcast as well. Now, Dave hopefully will come back sometime here soon. If you guys, have a comment or whatnot, we're going to go ahead and see if we can get the video uploaded on YouTube. But you guys know how it is. It's getting pretty difficult to upload to anything in general. But if not, we're always going to be on BitChute, and we're going to be on Rumble, as well as either Gab or Parler. And you guys can find us on there for any new episodes. Any last words, man?
Nah, I think you covered it nicely.
Awesome. I mean, I am pretty dope. All right, guys. You guys have a good day, and Macho out.